A historic visit to Iraq. The Pope meeting today with the country's top Shia cleric in his home. The Ayatollah saying Christians should be able to live in peace and security like all other Iraqis. The Pope today celebrating the first ever papal mass in Iraq. And ABC's Ian Panel is there.
Tonight, the first ever papal mass in Iraq, a country home to Christians since the 1st century. A heady mix of cheers, songs and incense greeted Pope Francis. This historic trip means so much to so many, but above all to the dwindling numbers of the faithful. Earlier, the Pope held a groundbreaking meeting with a top Shia cleric in Iraq, Grand Ayatollah Ali al-Sistani. Walking the narrow streets of the holy city of Najaf, Francis removed his shoes before meeting one of the most revered and influential religious leaders in the region. In a major move, the Grand Ayatollah offering protection to Iraq's beleaguered Christians, whose numbers have collapsed in the last 20 years. It was an unprecedented meeting between the head of Christianity and a leader of Shia Muslims, and sends a powerful message. There was also a pilgrimage to what's believed to be the birthplace of Abraham, the patriarch of Christianity, Judaism and Islam.
Pope Francis is on day 2 of his historic visit to Iraq, meeting with the nation's top Shia Muslim cleric and visiting an important religious site. ABC's senior foreign correspondent Ian Panel is in Iraq with the details. Good morning, Ian.
Yeah, good morning, Will. That's right. Day 2 of the Pope's groundbreaking trip, and I think a meeting many people could never have imagined. Undoubtedly the highlight of this visit in terms of the positive messages it sends around this region.
This morning, Pope Francis on a historic pilgrimage to the birthplace of Abraham, father of Christianity, Judaism and Islam. It's the first time any pope's been to Iraq, and it's a high-risk trip. The country racked by years of war and sectarian violence that's targeted Christians and other minorities. The country still reeling from the terror of ISIS. Earlier this morning, Francis travelled to the holy city of Najaf, and an almost unthinkable closed-door meeting between the head of the Catholic Church and one of the most powerful figures in Shia Islam, Grand Ayatollah Ali al-Sistani.
Pope Francis has met with the spiritual leader of most of the world's Shia Muslims, Grand Ayatollah Ali al-Sistani. The two men met at the Grand Ayatollah's residence in the city of Najaf, a 3-hour car journey to the south of the capital Baghdad. There they spoke for approximately 45 minutes. During that time, Pope Francis said he stressed the importance of cooperation and friendship between the religious communities of Iraq for the good of the country, the wider region and the entire human family. The Holy Father said that this can be achieved through the cultivation of mutual respect and dialogue. The Pope also expressed his gratitude to the Grand Ayatollah for speaking up for the persecuted people in Iraq, including persecuted Christians. The historic city of Najaf is the centre of the Iraqi Shia community. Meanwhile, to mark the papal meeting with the Ayatollah, Iraqi Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kadhimi has declared that March the 6th is now an official day of tolerance and coexistence in Iraq. After meeting with the Grand Ayatollah, Pope Francis headed back to the north and to the ancient city of Ur, which is the birthplace of Abraham, the Old Testament patriarch, who lived about 1,900 years prior to the birth of Jesus Christ, and who is revered as a founding figure by Christians, Muslims and Jews alike. While there, Pope Francis addressed a group of religious leaders and urged them to work for the promotion of peace and unity. He told them that Ur takes Christians, Muslims and Jews back to the common birthplace of their religions. He also asked that the followers of all three faiths strengthen their brotherhood through love, while lifting eyes towards heaven and worshipping God. The Holy Father recalled the recent example of young Muslim volunteers in the northern Iraqi city of Mosul who have helped to repair churches and monasteries, and in doing so, he said, helped to build fraternal friendships upon the rubble of hatred. Saturday also...
Months in the making, every detail carefully planned. After a photo op, the two men spoke privately for 40 minutes. The Ayatollah reportedly telling the Pope he also believes Christians should be able to live in peace in Iraq and enjoy the same rights as other Iraqis. It's a powerful statement from Sistani, who rarely makes his opinions known. When he does, Shiites in Iraq and around the world take note. Later, the Pope arrived in the ancient city of Ur.
Iraq. He's essentially the head of the largest community, the Shia community of Iraq. I think the fact that there being a dialogue between the two of them is extremely important. Also, the lead, Sistani himself, he's very reclusive and rarely gives political or public statements. So I think the fact that they both also reiterated the need for, being one united Iraq and all Iraqis, regardless of faith, should live together in peace. I think that really emphasises and really has a lot of weight within the country and also within the wider Middle East.
What about non-Christians? How are they?
He prefers to stay out of the public eye. Ayatollah Ali al-Sistani never leaves his home and never gives interviews. Instead, receiving guests at his modest house in this little alley in Najaf, a far cry from the pomp of the Vatican.
It looks like a hermit's house. It doesn't look like the Shiite world's highest authority. The head of 200 million people is hiding out in there. He hardly ever appears in person. Quite importantly, even his sermons that he delivers every Friday are read by spokespeople, not by himself.
In 2014, as the Islamic State group conquered large parts of Iraq, al-Sistani called for jihad against the jihadists themselves. Thousands responded to his call, forming the Popular Mobilization Forces. Zain al-Abidin and his brother joined. Their father took up arms too, but did not make it back.
He represents an umbrella under which we can all shelter. For all problems, all situations, we are under his protection. Even for the most personal problems, we follow his advice.
Born in Iran, al-Sistani has been living in Iraq since the 1950s. During Saddam Hussein's reign, he was under tight government surveillance. During the U.S.-led invasion of Iraq in 2003, he issued a fatwa against attacking American soldiers. The Iraqi dictator's fall allowed him to turn his religious influence into political power and to become the country's most influential voice in the process. Although he refrained from attacking the U.S., he still snubbed their leaders, refusing to grant an audience to Paul Bremer, who was serving as the Provisional Coalition Administrator of Iraq. Over the years, the Grand Ayatollah has played kingmaker in Iraq, his support or lack thereof a decisive factor in who gets to become prime minister.
It's obvious that he's a strong man, but he's one in the sense of being very political in his approach to the Iraqi political scene and in his way of speaking. He tries to place himself above the fray and not be tainted. I remember his instructions. He said he didn't want to be tainted by politics.
A historic meeting between Pope Francis and Shiite Islam's revered leader, expected to resonate across Iraq and the region.
وسهلا. شرفتم هنا. وشكرا جزيلا على هذه الزيارة وأهلا وسهلا بكم في مدينة نجف. De nuovo le ringrazio per questa visita.
هذه كشف قديم عمره 150 سنة. الأبواب التوابع والسخاء. أي نعم. هذه من البلوغ قديم أكثر من 100 سنة عمرها. هذه سجادة يدوية قديمة. السيد المسيح.
The Pope traveled to the holy city of Najaf, the third most important city for Shia Muslims. It houses the tomb of Muhammad's son-in-law, making it an important pilgrimage site for Muslims. Pope Francis was welcomed by authorities and children who gave him white and yellow roses, the colors of the Vatican flag. In another part of the city, white doves were released as a sign of peace. After a drive through the narrow streets of Najaf, the Pope reached the residence of Grand Ayatollah Ali al-Sistani, leader of the Iraqi Shia community, which makes up more than 60% of the population. Al-Sistani is a key figure of Shiism, one of the two main branches of Islam. The 45-minute meeting was held in the religious leader's modest home, where he welcomes people from all walks of life. Pope Francis highlighted the importance of fostering friendship between religions and cultivating respect and dialogue to positively contribute to the good of Iraq, the region, and all humanity. The Pope thanked the Grand Ayatollah and all Shia Muslims who have raised their voices to defend the weakest and those who have faced persecution during the last years. The Shia leader in turn affirmed his interest in seeing Christian citizens living like all Iraqis in peace and security while preserving all their constitutional rights. In 2014, Ali al-Sistani condemned ISIS. His action contributed to the fall of the self-proclaimed Islamic State and proved the weight of his moral influence in the Islamic world, showing that there is a possibility for dialogue.